This is UMass Sports Weekly.
Guys, thanks for joining me. I'm a little out of it today, so we're going to take this one nice and easy while we talk about this final. Now, guys, leading off, Michigan couldn't pull it off. First time to the final since the Fab Five era, and just couldn't top the #1 seed, Louisville. Pitino getting the win on the day of his Hall of Fame introduction, so pretty impressive from that 82-76 win. Adam, I'll start with you. Why don't you give us a little recap of the game?
Well, first off, Rick Pitino won it once again in the big game. And the reason was because Louisville was just completely relentless. Michigan played a fantastic game with their freshman guards, forwards. They played fantastic. It was 3-pointers left and right. But in the end, Louisville came up. And Luke Hancock with his 22 points, 5 3-pointers. He was 100% on 3-pointers. Definitely brought that edge against Michigan, and the rest is history.
Mike, what about you? What did you see from the game?
I'd like to start off with Rick Pitino as well. I mean, what a week for him. Got elected to the Hall of Fame. Now coming out here winning the national championship. Good for him. He's a great coach. He deserves it. And I'd like to bring up Hancock, like you said. I mean, he wouldn't have this exposure if it wasn't for Kevin Ware's injury. Now, you hate to call that a blessing in disguise, how gruesome the injury was. But, I mean, a lot more playing time, and he really took advantage of it. He came out 5 for 5 from 3, as you said. Most outstanding player of the tournament, well-deserved. I'd also like to shed light on just the coaching that Rick Pitino came through with in this game. I mean, you could tell that Michigan was just out-coached. Rick Pitino's defense down the stretch of that game was unbelievable. And even when Michigan came out in the beginning and was red hot, Rick Pitino called the timeout, rallied his troops. They went on their run, and Michigan out-coached, left Trey Burke on the bench for, I think, the last 12 minutes of the first half, which was questionable while Louisville's going on that run. Very controversial, but when it comes down to it, I think that Michigan was probably the more talented team, especially offensively. Some of their players, Glenn Robinson, Tim Hardaway, Trey Burke, Mitch McGarry. But Louisville was just full of good basketball players, and that's what good coaching comes down to.
Yeah, we love to see UMass alumni always succeeding, so seeing Pitino get some success at the national level. He's already been there with Kentucky, but seeing him do it again is always good. Now, you mentioned a lot of success of some of the unknowns, like guys like Hancock. What does it mean for a team like Louisville to have someone that is an unknown, unlike the Russ Smith and the Peyton Siva, to come up and go 5 for 5 from 3-point range?
I think that's great for college basketball because, listen, that just brings to the suspense of the tournament. You don't know who's going to come up where. Like Spike Albrecht, he came out and was just knocking down threes. He was on fire. I mean, that's what's the beauty of college basketball is that anyone can step up at any given moment. So it's great.
Yeah, now you mentioned like Spike Albrecht. He was one of the big performers for Michigan in this game, really brought them some momentum. You didn't see much of Hardaway in this game other than his huge dunk he had. Trey Burke doing his usual carrying, but Adama, what did you see from Spike Albrecht?
Well, I think Spike Albrecht was another headline altogether. He played fantastic, freshman guy. In all of the Big Ten games that Michigan's played this season, he only had 24 points. In the first half of this game, he had 17 points. He was also very relentless. He was 3 for 3 on 3-pointers, and then a few minutes after, 3 3-pointers in a row, he drove in and made a floater over Dang. And for many of you that don't know, Dang is a tall guy. He's 6'11". He's almost 7 feet, and Spike is 5'11". He's not even 6 feet. So Spike, he killed it. 3 3-pointers in a row. He drove in against Dang. He nailed a free throw, shot another 3-pointer, and had a nice right-handed layup. Kid played fantastic, and I definitely see a lot of good things in the future from him.
Now, we see these great performances on Michigan, but they were just unable to get the win. Another great performance, as we were expecting to see, was from Trey Burke, Wooden Award winner, Naismith Award winner, best player in the country. What did you see from Trey Burke that maybe could he maybe have done differently to help his team beat Louisville?
Trey Burke, he carries a tremendous load for Michigan, and that's probably one of the biggest flaws in their teams. He really always has the ball in his hands. It's make or break from Trey Burke. I think maybe down the stretch he was having trouble. Everyone couldn't help him handle the ball. He was having a lot of trouble. Maybe pass the ball a little better, get it up the court instead of keeping it in his hands so much. There's not too much more he could have done. Played a great game. He was getting to the free throw line. He was penetrating. He was dishing when he had to, and not to mention, he made big buckets down the stretch of that game. But it's tough when Louisville's playing the kind of game that they played. When you look at the numbers, the stats were all pretty even, but the big number was Louisville had 15 offensive rebounds, which is ridiculous. So Trey Burke, great game, great player. He talk about making yourself some more money by upping your stock in the draft. This tournament, really, he put himself in the conversation for, definitely top 10 pick, maybe top 5. I'd probably take him top 5. Great player. So I'm looking to see big things from him.
While you mentioned the draft, I just want to get your opinion. Russ Smith actually entered the draft pretty much immediately following that win. Didn't have the greatest game in the championship. Didn't play all that great. What do you think about that move to enter the draft before go senior season?
He's a junior, older player, and a lot of times you see how these older players in college basketball, they don't get real good till their senior season. They don't usually pan out in the NBA. He's about 6'2". He's a shooting guard, very undersized for the position. He's not a point guard. So I don't know how I feel about that. Probably should come back for his senior season, considering Peyton Siva is the only senior on this team that they're gonna lose. He's a great player, does a lot for that team. But Louisville has just as good of a shot to repeat next year, and they could really use Russ Smith. But, good player. He could score at will in college basketball. I don't know how I feel about him in the pros. I maybe late second round pick. So we'll see how it goes for him.
Well, it'll be good to see how that pans out for Russ Smith. Always good to see UMass alumni succeed like Rick Pitino. Always wish him the best. So, guys, thanks for joining me. We'll be right back to talk some MLB. Back to UMass Sports Weekly. I'm your host, Casey Johnson. Joining me at the table to talk a little MLB. To my right, Chris Corso. To my left, Tony Bolduc. You guys, thanks for joining me. Started off with talk a little AL East, where we always like to lead it off like Jacoby Ellsbury. Yankees, Red Sox, seen some interesting stuff going on from them. Red Sox doing a little better than a lot of people expected. Yankees struggling a lot more than a lot of people expected, but a lot of injuries have to do with that. Tony, why don't you give us a little recap of what you've seen in the AL East so far?
So far in the AL East, I've seen mostly the Red Sox have been starting pitching has been their key. They have Lester and Buchholz, who both look like aces so far. They're both 2-0 with Buchholz has a .6 ERA and Lester's has a 1.4. But they're both shutting down teams, which is crucial for any team that wants to win games. The Yankees, on the other hand, have the sixth worst pitching in the league, so they're letting up 37 runs. They've let up 37 runs this year, which is sixth worst in the league. That's definitely a bad point for them, because if what they need is average pitching at least when their lineup comes back. You can't really judge the Yankees from how they're playing now, because they have had some contributions from people that wouldn't normally be playing as much. But once they get their lineup back, if their pitching doesn't turn it around, then they could definitely see some trouble, because their bats are going to have to put up 7 to 8 runs a game. And then those Jays that everyone thought were going to be so good, don't look like they're going to be so good. It looks like they signed a bunch of guys that maybe one-hit wonders, with R.A. Dickey especially. He's been getting shelled. And you just don't know how they're going to do. They're 5-2, bottom of the AL East, and everyone was expecting them to be at the top of the list. So that's how the AL East is rounded up so far.
Yeah, we've seen a little of the Daisuke Matsuzaka syndrome in R.A. Dickey. You give him a year to pitch really well because no one's seen his stuff. You see his stuff, and now everyone's hitting him like it's lob balls. Now, we heard a real strong negative side there, the Yankees. I know that, but I know you can give us a little input from the New York side. What have you seen, along with the rest of the AL East as well?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Tony there. The Yankees have been struggling on the mound, and obviously without Jeter, without Teixeira, without all the big bats, A-Rod, a bunch of the guys that got injured, you need the pitching to pick up and definitely pick up when you're not getting as much support with the runs. And the bats have actually been hitting pretty well. Travis Hafner in the middle of the lineup coming out of nowhere, batting .390 right now with 2 home runs already. Robinson Cano starting to pick it up. The hitting has been kind of there. It hasn't been as bad as expected, but as Tony said, it's been the pitching that's been struggling. and we've seen some positive signs as of late. CC Sabathia coming back in his second start after getting shelled against the Red Sox on opening day. Then you saw Andy Pettit in his first start getting a complete game on the first start of the season, still showing that he's got something left. So if Pettit and Sabathia and Kuroda can start to step it up with the three top guys, I think those pitchers could be as good as anybody in the league. And then, as you said, the Red Sox have been playing great as of late. Lester was the best pitcher in all of spring training, had the best ERA, and he's carrying it over to the regular season along with Buchholz, who are both 2-0, as you said, and that's why the Red Sox have 5 wins already. So the Red Sox are at top right now, mainly because of their pitching, and I think it's always pitching what wins ball games in baseball, and that's what separates the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Now, when you got all these injuries on these teams like the Yankees, you need different guys to step up. And a lot of times it's from guys you don't usually expect. I know you mentioned a name before. You got any other surprise players that you've seen this year?
Well, I said Travis Hafner before, and I mentioned him as a surprise player because back in 2006, the guy hit 42 home runs and 120 RBIs and batted 300. So who knows, maybe you throw him in the lineup like the Yankees, you put him in pinstripes, you get some confidence back. Maybe he can return to maybe hit 25 home runs at Yankee Stadium with the short right field porch as a lefty there. So that's why I bring him up batting 390 already. But the second guy I'm going to bring up is another guy in the AL East, and that's Adam Jones, who I think is one of the streakiest hitters in all of baseball. The guy either is on a cold streak like he was in the playoffs last year where he went like 0 for 12 in the playoffs, or he goes on a red-hot streak, which is what he's on right now, batting 500 in the first 7 games of the season. The guy leads the league with 15 hits. He's got 10 RBIs. He's got 12 runs scored. He does everything. He steals bases, plays a gold glove center field. So if this guy stays hot throughout the season, I think he could be one of the marquee players in the American League.
Hard to beat 500 through 7 games to start the season.
Impressive.
But who do you got for some surprising players so far?
Surprising player I have so far which isn't that big of a surprise, but it's Justin Upton. The way he's been hitting the ball has been purely power. He has six homers, and he's got an average over 400. So he's been dominating for the Braves, which is key for them because the three-hitter is killing the ball. He's hitting the ball out of the ballpark, even though he does only have 8 RBIs. So some production could be better if there was guys on base for him. But 6 home runs, you can't hate that production to start the season. Another guy that I've noticed that's been playing well, which wasn't really expecting. He's kind of an older player, kind of a system player, but it's Coco Crisp. He's batting .333. He has 3 homers, and he's the key point in the lineup right now for the 5-2 Oakland Athletics. So that's a guy that you don't expect to put up big numbers, but when he does, it's definitely a big contribution, especially with his wheels and his defense too that he always brings to the table. If he can bring around hitting .333, that's going to be a prime player for the Athletics. And another guy who you've definitely heard him, Chris Davis, 4 home runs, 17 RBIs in his first 6 games. That's unbelievable. 17 RBIs to start the season. You don't see that often. He had a grand slam one game, and I think carrying back to last year, I think he had 12 straight games with a home run, which is unbelievable. So he's been crushing the ball. He's got a .417 average, which is a great average. So those are the guys that have surprised me so far and contributed to their team's best.
Yeah, based on this discussion so far, AL East is sounding pretty scary. Red Sox playing good, Adam Jones and Chris Davis. So we got a lot of teams playing well so far this season, AL East. Why don't you guys each give me a team that has been really playing well, really impressed you, Chris? I'll start with you.
Well, Casey, I'm going to go over to the NL East, and that's also a great division. And I'm going to go with the New York Mets, who have been very impressive to me. Now, this team was supposed to finish at the bottom of the division, and they've started the year 1 game behind the Braves at the second spot in the division at 5-2. Now, this team, you look at their lineup, and you wouldn't recognize a bunch of the players besides David Wright, who's hitting over 300 already this season. But you look at their lineup, and there aren't many guys that really stick out. But it's been their pitching that has been the strong spot for the team this season. And their pitching has started with Matt Harvey, the young right-handed starter, who was brought up from the minor leagues, and he has 18 Ks in his first 2 starts and a .6 ERA in his first 2 starts. The guy's been unhittable. He's led them to 2. He's got 2 wins already. They're 5-2. This team has been looking great because it's been all about pitching. They have no saves this season, which means it's been all about starting pitching. Jeremy Hefner has had a couple good games. Dylan G, all these guys, they're all contributing. Everybody's putting up quality outings. There hasn't been one non-quality outing out of all these 5 pitchers so far. So the Mets really look like if the pitching can keep up and David Wright can be an anchor in the middle of that offense, I think this team can maybe put up a fight in the National League East.
Now, Tony, you don't unfortunately have another team from Massachusetts you could choose from, but why don't you just give me a surprise team that's playing well?
The leader of the NL East, which is the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves, it seems like they have what would be chemistry between both Upton brothers. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I saw them both, B.J. Upton hit a home run to tie it, and then Justin Upton hits a home run later on to walk off. It's pretty amazing to see that. That's the first time brothers have done that since the Ripken brothers. And I feel like that could just be a huge chemistry thing to have 2 brothers like that on the same team. They're both pretty much, are they twins?
I don't think they're twins.
They're not twins, but
no.
they're
close in age.
They're close in age. So they're definitely going to have a chemistry together. And then you see that their team ERA is 2.29, which is a great ERA for a team. Anytime that you can have a team ERA under 3, you're going to win games. They're 6-1 right now. And just to talk about Justin and B.J. Upton, they're definitely going to hit for power. They're going to hit for power. They're going to hit on base. I'd already talked about Justin Upton and his stats. And B.J. Upton has been struggling a little bit and has been when he was on the Rays, too. It doesn't seem like he's always been there, but I feel like Justin Upton can get on his back and maybe get him swinging. And then they have Hayward and Freeman, who can both hit for power. So I think they have one of the stronger lineups in the National League. And if they can have their pitching and get a better on-base percentage, then I think they're going to win this division and win a lot of games this year.
Well, plenty to talk about just through 7 games so far this season. It's going to be a long season, plenty more to talk about. So, guys, thanks for joining me up here. Now, just to transfer a little bit, staying on the diamond, we have a nice package from the softball team. That's delivered to you from our very own Jesse Mayfield Sheehan of UMass Sports Weekly, with a little bit of help from the Collegian.
On the Fordham Rams at Sortino Field Saturday afternoon. Coming off a 9-5 win over the Rams the day before, the Minutewomen were hoping to further extend their 5-game overall winning streak and their 20-game home winning streak. Fordham struck first in this one as Elise Fortier went deep to right field in the first inning for a solo home run that put the Rams on the board. Fordham would score one more run in the first inning to take a quick 2-0 lead. But UMass struck back in the bottom half of the inning as Taylor Carbone singled to right center field to drive in a run and put the Minutewomen on the board. UMass threatened to do more in the first, but an attempted double steal turned into a double play for Fordham that ended the inning. But the score is still 2-1 in the third. Paige Ortiz hit a sac fly to left field that drove in the third run for the Rams and sparked a big rally for Fordham. Kayla Lombardo doubled to left. Chelsea Palumbo reached second on an error by right fielder Katie Betancourt, and Jamie Lebovic singled to left for a combined 5 RBIs that put the Rams up 8-1. After that, UMass brought in Bridget Lemire to relieve pitcher Caroline Raymond. But Fortier reached first on a throwing error by third baseman Tia Rogers to drive in another run and continue the rally. After the play, Rogers was replaced at third base by Anna Kelly. Gabby Ludi then singled to left to drive in the 8th and final run of the third inning, putting the Rams up 10-1. With the same score in the bottom of the fourth, Tiffany Meeks hit a double down the left field line and then advanced all the way to home on a throwing error by Fortier to give UMass 2 runs and cut the deficit to 10-3. 3 batters later, Anna Kelly stepped up to hit the first home run of her collegiate career, driving in 2 more runs and cutting the deficit to 10-5. Fordham responded in the 5th with back-to-back homers by Lebovic and Fortier to drive in 3 more runs and extend their lead to 13-5, threatening to beat UMass via mercy rule. But UMass responded in the bottom half of the inning with a 3-run rally of their own, coming from a single up center by Tiffany Meeks, a single to left by Lindsay Webster, and a single to left center by Christine Della Vecchia, to bring the Minutewomen back within 5 runs. But UMass didn't stop there, and in the bottom of the 6th, Taylor Carbone singled to left to drive in a run. Tiffany Meeks singled to right to drive in another. And Lindsay Webster walked with the bases loaded to drive in a third, bringing the Minutewomen within 2 runs of the Rams. But after Fordham scored a run in the top of the 7th, Lombardo hit a 3-run shot to left center to give the Rams a 17-11 advantage and put the game out of reach for the Minutewomen. That would ultimately be the final score, as UMass would lose to Fordham 17-11. I'm Jesse Mayfield Sheehan, and this is UMass Sports Weekly.
Joining me now to talk a little UMass athletics is our very own Jesse Mayfield Sheehan. Jesse, thanks for joining us. Now, that package was great. Only problem with it, UMass took the loss. Now, unfortunately, you seem like maybe some bad luck charm or something, because they went 3 for 4 over the weekend, but you were at the loss and got the package for us.
I know, I have absolutely no idea what happened.
Maybe we should just get some news reports and we'll talk about it later. Maybe keep the video reports to a minimum. No, but it's good to see him take 3 out of 4. Yeah. It's good some good wins from the team. What are your takeaways from this weekend overall?
Well, a few things I take away from this weekend, Case. The first thing, the hitting from this team is definitely legit. I mean, the hitting's been going crazy ever since they started conference play a couple weeks ago. But they were going crazy against teams like Dayton and Boston College and St. Bonaventure, teams that didn't really have the greatest pitching staffs. They go up against a team like Fordham, really strong conference opponent, and great pitching staff. They came into that series with a 3.06 team ERA, and they whopped them offensively. They scored 9 runs in the first game against them. They scored 11 runs in that tough loss that you just had to watch in that highlight reel. So, without a doubt, this offense is a legit threat throughout the A-10. Doesn't matter how good your pitching staff is, the UMass Minutewomen will find a way to score. And another thing that you take away from this, which was another bright spot, the pitching actually showed up in the LaSalle doubleheader that followed the Fordham games. In those 2 games, pitcher Caroline Raymond, she pitched both. She actually pitched the entire weekend, which was impressive showing from her. And she didn't give up a single run throughout that doubleheader, gave up a total of 3 hits, I think, which was a very impressive showing. Not the best team to be doing that against in LaSalle, but still, considering how much the pitching has struggled this season, really, really positive note to see from the pitching there. And we even saw some bright spots from the fielding, which has struggled. 2 games, they had no errors. One of the doubleheader games and the first game against Fordham. Unfortunately, in the other 2 games, they gave up 3 errors in one and a whopping 5 in the other. So a little bit of inconsistency in the fielding, but showing some signs of improvement in some areas they've been struggling, which is always good to see.
Yeah, as we've been discussing so far over this season, it's really been their pitching that's needed to be the focus, and losing Sarah Plord, and really just not getting the performance that they needed. So seeing some of these positives over the weekend in pitching and even in the fielding, as you said, what do you see from this team going forward?
Well, I think what they really need to do going forward, keep hitting the way they've been hitting, obviously. And I think with the pitching, one thing that Coach Sortino has really been emphasizing is the need to not walk so many hitters. I mean, in those first 2 games, the team walked a total of 16 hitters against Fordham. And in that first game against LaSalle, I think there was only 1 walk from Caroline Raymond, which was a good showing. Unfortunately, she still walked 4 in the second game. But still an impressive showing in that second game. So that is one thing that they can't do. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times the offense hits the ball to drive in runs if, the opponents already have 2 free runners on base and all they need is 1 hit to score a couple runs. They're automatically at a disadvantage on the defensive side. So that's something the pitching needs to work on. And obviously the fielding has got to improve their consistency. You can't just go out and commit 0 errors in one game and then commit 5 in the other. You got to be able to commit, 1 or 0 errors in both games, if you're going to be able to back up your fielding, back up your pitching, rather.
Yeah, it's good performances overall to see from in the weekend from the softball team, and hopefully those bright spots will continue to shine as the season goes on. Now, moving on to the lacrosse field, women's lacrosse with 2 one-goal wins over the weekend. Not your usual wins on the lacrosse field that you would see. What did you take away from this game, Jesse?
Well, a couple of things I took away from this, Casey. First, a slight concern, as this seems to be perhaps the only weakness for the women's lacrosse team is their second half play. Now, in both these games, they had pretty substantial leads going into the half. They had like an 8-3 lead going into the first one and a 7-3 lead in the second one, and yet they still ended up only winning by 1 goal. And what happened was they came out in the second half, and the other team and their opponents started to fight back. So, without a doubt, certainly something that needs to be worked on. Not just come out. They certainly come out strong in the beginning. They come out very fast, scoring a lot of goals, but they got to be able to sustain that. But one thing I saw, which was a positive, was their ability to hang tough in these tough one-goal games. They've had 4 so far this season, and they've won 3 of them. So that's certainly a good thing to see. Because one thing you'd expect from a team that wins a lot of games by scoring 20 goals on their opponents is that perhaps when they're faced with a tough situation where the opponent's actually coming back on them, actually giving them a real fight, is they might, fold and might give up an unexpected loss. But this team didn't do that. This team, has held their composure together, held it together, and, come away with these 1-goal wins. So I think that's something that's really positive from them. If they can hold their composure in the tough games and they can come out with the blowout wins as well, then they're a very tough team to beat. There's a reason they're ranked number 13 in the country right now. They're a very good-looking team right now.
So in being so tough and with so much successes, how much success do you think they can have continuing with the season? Excuse me.
Oh, I think absolutely. In terms of the conference, I don't know if there's anyone who can stop them right now. I mean, we've been watching them throughout the season just blow away every opponent, almost all the opponents in their way. And then you got this weekend where it's like, even if you get close, they can still pull it out on you, even if it takes 2 overtimes to do it, as they did in the first game. So I think in terms of A10 competition, I think they'll go straight to another championship. And I think they could even go some distance in the NCAAs. So I think really with this team, the way they've been playing, sky's the limit.
Well, that's some positive news, from the Minute Woman over on the cross field. Hopefully that can continue. Hopefully those predictions can come true. More somber side, the men's lacrosse team. Now, not the success we're used to or even expect here at UMass from the lacrosse team. Another loss, this one to Towson, 9-5. Not a team you expect them to lose to, a strong competitor, but still a team they should beat. That puts them to 0-3 in the conference. So, Jesse, what's going on with the team this year?
Well, Casey, it's really on the offensive side. I mean, like you said, Towson, a tough competitor. They're really one of the better defensive teams in the Colonial Athletic Association, and against a team, like the Minutemen, who have been really having a tough offensive season thus far. It's not the kind of team you want to go up against, and it really showed in the scoreboard, only scoring 5 goals in that game. And, throughout the season, it's just been sort of up and down the offense. I mean, last year their offense was really good and consistent. There were only 3 games in which they scored single digits throughout the season last year. And then this year, on the flip side, there's only been 3 games so far. Granted, they haven't played a full season, but there's only been 3 games in which they actually scored double digits. So clearly there's been, a significant drop-off on the offensive production. One part of that, obviously, is the injuries they've suffered to key players like Will Manny and Colin Fleming. But even as they come back, Colin Fleming has only scored 1 goal since returning. So clearly a tough recovery period for those two. So, I mean, yes, there's been a slight drop-off on the defensive side as well. They're not quite the amazing defense they had last year. But Zach Oliveri has had a very solid season. He's looked very good at some points, and considering he's only a freshman, I think he, could have a very good career here at UMass in the net. But really, it's the offensive side that's taken the significant drop-off this season, and it's what's really cost them so far this season.
Yeah, not the offensive output that you definitely want to see, and it has been the problem with their team and what has brought them down to actually being dead last in the conference now. That's no place you expect UMass lacrosse to be. It's different when they lose a national ranking, but dead last in the conference is just unheard of for them. Is there any hope left for this team, Jesse?
Well, I mean, it's the world of sports. There's always hope until you get flat out eliminated from the playoffs, but the way things are going, it really doesn't look good. They'd have to win every single game remaining in the season, and they're taking on 2 of the best teams in the conference in Drexel and Hofstra over the next 2 games. And honestly, the way they've been playing, I don't think those are objectively do not think those are games they can win. I mean, their last game is against Delaware, which is, a weaker team that they should be able to defeat, but Drexel and Hofstra just seem like two hurdles they can't get over with the current state of the team, and it looks like they may even miss the conference playoffs this year.
Well, that's unfortunate to hear because that's not what you expect from the lacrosse team. But like you said, bright spots in net. Maybe you can look something towards the future, looking towards next year. Even though it's what you hate to do when the season is still going on. But like you said, it's a tough schedule to finish out. Well, we'll look towards next year with that, and we'll keep watching though. Like you said, it's sports. It still can happen. So we'll see how it finishes out. Jesse, thanks for joining me. And thanks for joining us at home. And stay tuned next week. We'll be back same time, same place.